So let's get into this case. So, the father, Jim Bob Duggar, was born in Springsdale, Arkansas in 1965. He grew up there, and he actually became a real estate agent for a while. He met his wife, Michelle Rourke, when he was 19, and she was 17 years old. And when she graduated, 3 months after, they got married. In the year 1984, okay? Now this is going to be important for the case, but they are devout Baptists, both of them. And they follow some pretty strict beliefs. So that will influence this crime and their parenting style. But the couple really followed this idea of purity and modesty, and they do not believe in birth control, and quote, that God will decide how many children they will have. Michelle also got her real estate agent license, but I'm not sure if she ever practiced or sold any houses, and I'm not sure how often she worked, considering she had so many children. So, the couple welcomed their first child, Joshua Duggar, in 1988. And if you notice, that's a pretty large gap from when they got married to when they got their first child. And I think it's because they did believe in birth control at the first part of their marriage. But, after Josh was born, Michelle had a miscarriage. Excuse me. She had a miscarriage, and the doctor that she went to told her that it's because she was on birth control, and that could have affected her fertility. Which I'm not sure if that's true, but the couple then refused to take any birth control from then on. So, you'll see where their show comes from. Jim Bob continued working as a real estate agent, and he actually ran for the Arkansas House of Representatives, but he lost. Oh, just kidding. Actually, he was there from 1999 to 2002. That's why I have my notes, so I don't get that wrong. But he did have big plans to run for the Senate, but he lost. So, the couple would then go on to have 19 kids. So let's talk about the parenting style for a second. Sorry, my throat. All of the children were homeschooled. All of them. They had a limited access to TV or the media. And when I was researching, I found out that they believe in this controversial parenting style called blanket time. Blanket time. Now, what is blanket time? It sounds very cute, but actually it's a practice where there's an allocated time of the day, and there's a certain amount of time that a toddler must stay on a blanket and have like a specific few toys on the blanket. And what's messed up is if the child tries to leave the blanket, as a toddler would do, the child would be hit with a roller. So this is supposedly to teach self-control. And it is following a parenting book made by a very devout Christian. I forget the name right now, but yeah, it's supposed to teach self-control. They also have a role of called chaperoned courtship. Chaperoned courtship, which means that if their children want to date someone, they must always be with an adult at all times and in a group setting. This is actually shown to promote patriarchal hierarchy and what's it called, subservient women, right? That the woman must be modest, protect her virtue, and never be alone with a man, right? Now, their daughters had a very strict dress code. No tank tops, no skirts above the knee, and interestingly enough, no swimming. No swimming. Which is sad, of course. And why do they say no swimming? The Duggar parents said, quote, because it's just too hard for the guys to try to keep their eyes averted in those situations. So you can kind of see some issues building, right? Now, so they have 19 kids. I hate if you can hear that beeping, but they have 19 kids, and they're all named with a J. So I'm going to quickly go through the children so you kind of know what we're talking about. From oldest to youngest, here we go. Joshua, Jana, John David, Jill, Jessa, Jinger, Joseph, Josiah, Joanna, Jedediah, Jeremiah, Jason, James, Justin, Jackson, Joanna, Jennifer, Jordan Grace, Josie. And I also found that they have a great nephew that they have custody over now named Tyler. So that's just a little tidbit. So now that we kind of know about the family values and the mom and dad, let's talk about the victims and the perpetrator. So Josh Duggar, and his victims. So now Josh would begin his sexual assault at the time when there were 5 sisters living in the house. At that time, those sisters were aged 5 to 12. And keep in mind, he is the oldest, right? So, the paper trail of the crime begins in 2002. One of the girls went up to Jim Bob and told him that Josh was, quote, touching her breasts and genitals while she slept. Now the father hid that secret for a year before he would do anything about it. And he finally consulted with some church elders, his Baptist church. The church elders said to send Josh away from the home. So when Josh was 15 years old, in March of 2003, his dad sent him away. But the dad justifies or forgives this behavior because, quote, he was just curious about girls, and he had gone in and touched them over their clothes while they were sleeping. So Josh comes back in 2003, that same year, and I'm going to assume that the problem continued because while it wasn't reported, Jim Bob was concerned enough to, with the church elders, bring Josh to a state trooper to turn himself in. However, and here's the really messed up part, the trooper named Hutchins made no charges against him. He, quote, gave Josh a stern talk because they knew each other quite well. Now, that same trooper would later be sentenced to 56 years in prison after pleading guilty to child porn charges. So we've got ourselves a messed up boys club over here in Arkansas. Now, then the show would air in 2008, right? Josh is now 20 years old. And the rest of his siblings would range from 18 to 1 years old. Now, he would get engaged to Anna Keller. And I want to talk briefly about Anna because you'll see that she has a prominent view on his crimes. And she will later get a lot of criticism racism. So she is the fifth of 7 children. She also had a very strict homeschooled upbringing. And what was weird about her upbringing was there was a weekly meeting for 15 minutes where the children could each spend individually with their parents to talk about their feelings. A weekly meeting for 15 minutes only to talk about their feelings. Her dad was a minister to inmates, and so Anna often worked with incarcerated women herself. She has an online degree from a Christian university, and her major was in child development. So, Anna and Josh would meet during a homeschooling convention. She met him, liked him a lot, and discussed her feelings to her mother about him. And then the two would enter a courtship that was, of course, chaperoned with no physical contact. Their very first kiss was at their wedding, and they declared that they too would leave the number of children they would have up to God. So, back to the assault, the case. Later on, Josh, on May 1st, 2015. Okay, so we have a bit of a yearly gap, and I'm assuming that the family kept it hush-hush. Shh, don't tell. But on May 1st, 2015, Josh Duggar made a Facebook post where, quote, this is what he says. We spoke with the authorities where I confessed my wrongdoing, and my parents arranged for me and those affected by my actions to receive counseling. I understood that if I continued down this wrong road, that I would end up ruining my life. I sought forgiveness from those I had wronged and asked Christ to forgive me and come into my life. I would do anything to go back to those teen years and take different actions. In my life today, I am so very thankful for God's grace, mercy, and redemption. So, on May 22nd, now keep in mind people rumors had started to emerge about him molesting his sisters. And keep in mind, there is a case file on him at this time. But they opened the case file up to investigate his assault, and on May 22nd, that same month, an Arkansas judge ordered the police to destroy the investigation record on Josh Duggar, and to this day it does not exist. So people were upset, people are questioning what happened, who was molested. This Facebook post comes out, and the show obviously is being canceled because of him, and June 3rd, 2015. So, very soon after, Jill and Jessa Duggar confirmed they were among the children molested. Jill says at 24 years old that the news coverage of this police report was, quote, a re-victimization that's 1,000 times worse, because that is something that was already dealt with. So, Arkansas had a criminal investigation crime open, right? Because of these rumors, because it was coming out. The judge orders it closed, and the sisters who are molested come out to say, why are you investigating my brother? We've already dealt with this. She continues and says, quote, we've already forgiven Josh. We've already moved on. So, Jessa goes, I do want to speak up in his defense against people who are calling him a child molester or a pedophile or a rapist. Some people are saying, I'm like, that is so overboard and a lie, really. I mean, people get mad at me for saying that, but I can say this because I was one of the victims. And I just want to be clear that during this time, the parents are pushing for the show to not be canceled. And mostly they are advocating for their son, not their daughters. For example, they are saying that those records should not have been revealed to the public, that no one should have found out that he had ever molested his sisters. No thought was given to the poor daughters. And I do want to say at this time that in a household like this that have probably already defended their son to their daughters, right, and told them that they should forgive and be good Christians, I want you guys to listen to that report, their coverage, with a grain of salt. These are women that have been homeschooled by their parents and taught that family is important and they should sacrifice a lot for family and to basically raise their younger siblings. So I want you to kind of be light on that for them. So you would think that that's the end of it, I'm sure, but it's not, because predators like this don't stop just because they're caught, just because they're sorry. So Josh was secretly busy behind the scenes. The public is looking into him, right? And he was soon revealed to be a customer of Ashley Madison, which is apparently a site for married people to cheat on their spouse with others. So, this was revealed, and his wife, bless her, forgives him. She has forgiven the charges of him molesting molesting his sisters, and now she will forgive that he was cheating on her. Then the FBI gets a ping on their system because Josh had downloaded a browser where he could access the dark web. But at the same time, on December 2015, the spin-off for the Duggar show was run. And what TLC was trying to do is remove Josh from from the brand and just feature mostly Jill and Jessa Duggar, who have their own families at this point. But remember, the FBI has gotten a ping on their system that he has the dark web, and they are watching him. And on April 29th, 2021, pretty recently, he is arrested on federal charges of receiving and possessing child pornography. He pled not guilty. The statements that the Duggar family made infuriated people because there was barely any comment about the child pornography, the children being exploited. But instead they say to pray for their family. So in court, the federal agent that had been watching Josh confessed that Josh had downloaded and possessed 65 images of child pornography, and he has in his possession a 2-minute video of girls between 5 and 10. And I want it to be said that the federal agent testified that one of Duggar's downloads was, quote, some of the worst sexual abuse child pornography that he has seen in over 1,000 cases. Another agent would testify and say that one of the materials contained an infant. Which is just, there are no words, right? But he is released on bail. He is still allowed to see his own children if his wife is present. But on December 9th, 2021, so not far after, Duggar is once again found guilty of receiving and possessing child pornography. So he has used a work computer to do this because on his personal one, his wife had downloaded I don't know how to call it, like a security thing where she can see everything he clicks on all day. And because he's a monster, he used his work computer to get around that. He will most likely be sentenced this year in April, and he faces up to 20 years in prison if convicted. So I want you guys to keep an eye on this case, and I would like to say I'm so sorry to the Duggar daughters. And, we don't know the whole story because they never came forward to explicitly say that, right? And we don't know which daughters other that not only did their parents fail to protect them, but the law failed, the church elders failed. It was more important for forgiveness to be taught than justice. And a lot of child abuse is hidden from us, right? It's hard to see the signs of people that you know, but I wanted us to keep in mind how horrible it must have been to be one of those sisters. And you know how scared they must have been from their brother. You know, and I want it to be said that I can't imagine how many times they told their dad before something finally happened. So what do you guys think of this case? Obviously, it's horrible. I think that, you know, having ideals and following a religion is perfectly fine, but not to this extent. Like, this, you're deciding a abuser, literally a pedophile, in your midst because he's family. Yeah, I just want to say that I'm sorry. And even if the sisters themselves don't want justice for themselves, I want it for them, you know. So, I hope you guys enjoyed my first true crime video. I am sorry about the sounds outside.